Arman was once a simple man. He lived in a small rented flat with his wife, Naz. Their home had no luxury, no gold, no expensive furniture. But what they had was love. Pure, honest love. Every morning, Arman would leave home with big dreams in his eyes and hope in his heart. He wanted to start a business to become something in life. But he had no money, no support. Only Naz believed in him. Naz worked 2 jobs, one as a teacher during the day and one as a helper in a small bakery at night. Her hands were always tired, her eyes always sleepy, but her heart never complained. She saved every penny, skipped her own needs, and gave all her money to Arman. "Someday you'll shine," she always told him, holding his hand, "and I'll be right beside you, watching." Years passed. Arman's hard work and Naz's sacrifices finally gave fruit. His business grew. First a small shop, then a chain of stores. Investors joined, and soon Arman became a known name in the city. Rich people started inviting him to parties. He wore suits, drove luxury cars, and spoke like a king. But with money came pride, and with pride came distance. Arman changed. He no longer came home on time. He stopped sharing his problems with Naz. He started ignoring her completely. Naz noticed the change but stayed silent. She believed it was just stress, just a phase, but deep inside she felt something slipping away. Then came Rima. Rima was rich, beautiful, and full of charm. She was a powerful businesswoman who owned a fashion empire. Arman met her during a business event. She smiled at him like he was special. She praised his work, his ideas, and slowly, she entered his life. Rima was everything Naz was not, at least on the outside. She was confident, bold, and came from a wealthy background. Arman got impressed, then obsessed. One day, without warning, Arman came home with a blank face. Naz had cooked his favorite food and was waiting with a smile. "Arman, you're home early today," she said softly. He didn't respond. He walked in, looked at the food, and then looked at her with cold eyes. "We need to talk," he said. Naz's smile faded. She sat down, her heart racing. "I don't love you anymore," Arman said. You don't fit in my world now." Naz blinked. She thought she misheard him. What do you mean?" she asked, her voice shaking. "I'm moving on," he said bluntly. "I want a divorce." Tears filled Naz's eyes. "But why? I stood by you when no one else did. I gave you everything, my time, my money, my dreams." Arman turned away. "And I'm thankful, but that chapter is over. I want a new life. I'm marrying Rima." It felt like someone had stabbed Naz in the heart. She couldn't breathe. The man she had loved, supported, and trusted had turned his back on her, like she was nothing. Within weeks, the divorce was finalized. The big house, the cars, the bank accounts, everything went to Arman. Naz didn't fight. She just walked away, carrying nothing but her memories. Everyone talked about Arman's new wedding. The media called it the business marriage of the year. Rima and Arman looked like the perfect power couple. Cameras flashed, people cheered, and Arman smiled like he had won everything. But no one knew what Naz had silently taken with her. She had walked away with a secret that Arman never cared to ask about, a secret that would one day come back and shake his entire world. As Naz sat alone in a tiny apartment, staring at a picture of their early days, she whispered to herself, "You may have left me, Arman, but you also left behind something else, something you will regret." And with that, she placed her hand on her stomach, where a new life was quietly growing inside her. Naz moved into a small, quiet apartment on the city's edge. It was nothing like the luxury house she once lived in with Arman. There were no marble floors, no fancy lights, and no soft bed to rest on, just one small room, a broken fan, and a mattress on the floor. But Naz wasn't thinking about comfort. She had something more important to worry about now. She was pregnant, and she was alone. Every morning, Naz woke up before the sun rose. She made herself a simple breakfast, took deep breaths to calm her body, and left for work. She had managed to find a part-time job at a small bookstore. The pay was low, but it helped her afford rent and food. As her belly grew, so did the weight on her shoulders. She didn't tell anyone about her pregnancy, not even her landlord. She feared that if people knew, they might treat her differently, or worse, kick her out. One day, as Naz sat on a bench outside the bookstore during her lunch break, she looked up at the tall billboard across the street. It showed Arman and Rima smiling together, advertising their new fashion brand. Her heart ached, but her eyes stayed dry. She wasn't the same woman anymore. She wasn't weak. She wasn't broken. She was a mother now, and that gave her a new kind of strength. Later that evening, Naz visited a free clinic. The doctor was kind and gentle. He did a checkup and gave her some vitamins. "You're strong," the doctor said. "Your baby is healthy. Just keep going." Naz smiled for the first time in days. That one word, strong, gave her the power to keep moving forward. Back in the world of glitz and gold, Arman was busy living a life of glamour. Rima took him to high-end parties, introduced him to millionaires, and made sure his name was always in the news. But Arman was not as happy as he showed. Rima was not like Naz. She was cold, proud, and always busy. She loved money, not emotions. She spoke more to her assistant than to Arman. Slowly, the silence in their new home started growing louder than any noise outside. One night, while sitting alone in his huge living room, Arman scrolled through his old photos. He stopped at a picture of Naz, smiling, wearing a plain yellow dress, standing beside him when he opened his first store. His chest felt heavy. He put the phone away, blaming it on the wine. But the truth was, something inside him missed her. Back in her tiny room, Naz sat near her window, sewing old clothes to earn extra money. She had started a small side hustle, fixing torn clothes for people in her building. She didn't want anyone's help, not even Arman's. He had left her when she needed him most. Now she would raise her child on her own. As days turned into weeks, Naz's strength surprised even herself. She learned to live with less, to smile through pain, and to prepare for a future full of unknowns. One rainy night, as thunder rolled across the sky, Naz stood on her small balcony and looked up. "I don't know what tomorrow holds," she whispered to her baby, "but I promise you, you will never feel abandoned." And in that moment, something shifted. Naz was no longer the heartbroken wife Arman left behind. She was becoming a warrior, a mother ready to fight for her child's future. Arman's new life looked perfect from the outside. He had everything: money, fame, a luxurious home, and a stunning wife, Rima. But behind the golden walls, something was missing. It started with small things. Rima would often come home late from parties, alone. She barely spent time with Arman. She was always on her phone, always planning her next business deal or taking selfies for social media. Whenever Arman tried to talk about their life, she brushed him off. "This is how rich people live," she would say. "You wanted success, remember?" Arman smiled on the outside but felt empty on the inside. One evening he planned a surprise dinner for Rima at home. He hired chefs, got her favorite flowers, and even played soft music in the background. He waited with hope in his heart, but Rima didn't show up. Hours passed. Arman finally called her. She answered, annoyed. "I'm at a networking event. Don't be so clingy, Arman." The call ended. The food turned cold, and Arman sat alone at the table, staring at the candlelight that flickered and faded. Across the city, Naz had just returned from the hospital. She held a small photo in her hand, her baby's first ultrasound image. Tears filled her eyes, not from sadness, but from love. Her baby had a strong heartbeat. A new life was growing inside her, and it gave her more hope than anything else in the world. The bookstore where she worked had noticed her hard work. Her manager gave her extra hours and a little bonus. "Naz," her manager said, "you have a quiet strength. People respect that." Naz smiled and whispered to herself, "Maybe I can still build something beautiful, even from nothing." Back in Arman's life, trouble had started brewing in his business. One morning, his financial advisor rushed into his office. "Sir, we have a problem. The company's accounts don't match." "What do you mean?" Armand asked, frowning. "There's been misuse of funds. Millions have been moved, and we believe someone from the inside did it." Armand's heart dropped. He called Rima to talk. She laughed. "You're just being paranoid, Armand. Maybe you should focus more on work and less on emotions." Her cold reply made Armand feel like a stranger in his own life. Later that night, Armand opened an old storage box in his study. It was full of things he had forgotten: photos of Naz, letters she wrote him during the early days, and even a handwritten plan of his first store, the same one Naz helped build by working double shifts. He stared at her handwriting. "I believe in you," it said, "even when you don't believe in yourself." He ran his fingers across the paper, his throat tight. For the first time, he whispered her name. Naz. Meanwhile, Naz's belly had grown round and full. Her neighbors had finally noticed and started helping her in small ways. An old auntie brought her home-cooked food. A young girl helped her carry groceries. Even her landlord became kinder. "You've made this place warm," he said once. "It was just walls before you." Naz's kindness was changing people around her. Her simple strength was powerful in Kui. The mansion was quiet. Armand sat alone in his grand living room. The walls were tall, the lights bright, but his heart was dark. His world had crashed. Rima had left him, not just left, but betrayed him. She stole his money and shattered his pride. For the first time in years, Armand felt empty. Suddenly, the doorbell rang. The servant had already left, so Armand opened the door himself. There was no one at the door, just a small envelope, placed gently on the doormat. He picked it up and looked at the handwriting. It was neat, familiar. His heart skipped a beat. Naz. He slowly opened the letter with trembling hands. The letter: "Dear Armand, I hope this letter finds you in peace. I do not write to hurt you or ask anything from you. I just wanted to say, I forgave you a long time ago. You chose a different path, and I accepted it. But I want you to know something. You left behind not just a wife, but also a future. I am pregnant, Armand. The child is yours. I didn't tell you before because I knew you had moved on. I didn't want your money or pity. I just wanted to protect this child from pain. But I think every child has the right to know the truth, even if the father never looks back. Take care of yourself." Naz. Armand's hands began to shake, his eyes filled with tears that he had held back for years. A child? He had a child. A sudden storm of memories rushed through his mind. Naz laughing, making tea in their small kitchen, reading books late at night, supporting his dreams without asking for anything. And now, she was raising his child alone. He felt something crack inside his chest, a pain deeper than Rima's betrayal. He folded the letter and held it tightly, as if it were the last piece of warmth he had left. He whispered, "Naz, why didn't you tell me?" That same night, Armand sat in front of his computer. He searched online until he found the small bookstore Naz worked at. It was still open. Her photo was on the website. She was smiling, truly smiling. He zoomed in. She looked different now, softer, stronger. And then, below her photo, he noticed something else. A message that read, "Coming soon, little steps, a reading cafe for mothers and children." Armand's throat tightened. She was planning a future for their child without him. The next morning, he couldn't stop himself. He put on a simple jacket and drove across the city. No driver, no luxury car, just him like the old days. When he reached the bookstore, he stood outside for a few moments watching Nayaz through the window. She was organizing books, humming softly to herself. Her hand rested on her stomach as she moved gently. Armand had never seen a sight so beautiful and so painful. He wanted to run inside and fall to his knees, but he froze. Was he even worthy of forgiveness? Would Naz even want to see him? He turned to leave, But as he took a step back, a small voice called out, "Arman." He looked up. Naz was standing at the door. She had seen him. Her face was calm. Her eyes didn't show anger, only surprise. They stared at each other for a moment. Silence. Arman finally spoke. "I got your letter." Naz nodded slowly. "I thought you should know." "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I know," she said. They sat down inside, not as husband and wife, but as two people with a long history, one that wasn't fully over yet. Arman looked at her belly and then into her eyes. "Can I be part of the baby's life?" Naz didn't answer right away. She looked at him for a long time, as if searching for truth. "Do you want to be a father, Arman? Or are you just feeling guilty?" Arman looked down. "I don't know," he said honestly. "But I want to. I want to fix things." Naz's voice was soft. "You can't fix everything, Arman. But maybe you can still be there. For the child." Arman began visiting Naz quietly every few days. He didn't talk much. He didn't try to act like a husband. He simply helped, cleaned the shelves, brought groceries, fixed broken chairs in the bookstore. It was his way of saying sorry without using words. Naz didn't stop him, but she also didn't say much. She kept her heart guarded. Sometimes, when Arman looked at her, he could see the love was still there, but it was buried deep under years of hurt. And the baby, it was growing fast. Naz had only 3 months left before the delivery. One evening, as they closed the shop together, Arman said softly, "Naz, I want to be sure. I mean, not because I don't trust you, but I want to be a father completely. And for that, my heart needs one final answer." Naz looked at him. Her eyes were calm. She already knew what he was trying to say. "You want a DNA test?" she said plainly. Arman hesitated. "Just to remove all doubt. Not about you, about myself. So I never question again." Naz nodded. "Fine. But this is your only chance. If the test is positive, you accept this child fully. No more confusion." "I promise," Arman whispered. A week later, the report came. Arman opened the envelope with shaking hands, sitting in his lonely mansion. 0.9% match. The child was his. Tears rolled down his cheeks. For the first time in years, he felt something real, deeper than money, deeper than guilt. He wasn't just a broken husband. He was a father. And it wasn't just about fixing things anymore. It was about becoming the man he had lost. The next morning, he went to the bookstore earlier than usual. He brought flowers. Not expensive ones, but the same white lilies Naz used to love back when they had no money. He also brought a gift, a small wooden cradle he had carved himself. He had stayed up all night working on it. Naz looked surprised when she saw him. Arman gently placed the flowers and cradle in front of her. Then he handed her the report. "I'm ready," he said. "I want to be part of our child's life, not as a visitor, but as a father who never walks away again." Naz's eyes welled up, but before she could reply, someone entered the store. A tall, young man, dressed in black, holding a briefcase. He walked straight toward them and handed Naz a document. "I'm sorry to disturb," the man said, "but this is urgent. Legal notice." Naz froze. Arman quickly took the paper and began reading. His face went pale. The letter was from Rima's. She was suing Arman for fraud. She was trying to claim what little money he had left, and worse. She had filed a case against Naz, too, accusing her of conspiring with Arman to steal assets. It was a lie, a cruel, twisted lie. But it was legal trouble, and it could destroy everything. "Why would she do this?" Naz whispered, shaken. "She's angry," Arman said, his fists clenched. "And she wants revenge." Naz looked down. "You told her about me?" "No," Arman replied. "But someone must have seen me coming here. The bookstore, the baby, everything was now in danger." Nazi sank into a chair, her face pale. "This child hasn't even taken a breath, and already the world is against it." Arman knelt beside her. "No one will harm you or this child," he said. "I may have failed before, but not now." Over the next few days, things moved fast. Rima used her money and influence to push the case. News started spreading online. Billionaire's ex-wife caught in property scandal. Some customers stopped coming to the bookstore. Naz's business dropped by 70%, but Armand stood like a shield. He hired the best lawyer he could find. He gave up his last property to keep the case out of court. And quietly, he sold his mansion. Nazi didn't know until the day he showed up with just one suitcase, asking if he could stay in the small guest room above the bookstore. "I don't have a home anymore," he said, smiling, "but maybe I can build one here again." Naz didn't answer, but she opened the door. The bookstore was quiet that night. Naz sat behind the counter, reading a children's book aloud to her unborn child. Her hand rested gently on her belly, and the baby kicked softly in response. Armand was in the back room fixing a broken shelf. He had become quieter these days, more thoughtful, more present. He still carried the shame of his past, but now he carried hope too. Suddenly, Naz felt a sharp pain. She froze. Another pain followed, stronger. This time, her hands gripped the counter. "Armand," she whispered. He rushed out immediately. "What's wrong?" I think something's happening," Naz gasped. "It's too early, the baby." Her words cut off as her legs gave out. Armand caught her just in time before she hit the floor. Her water had broken. She was bleeding. Armand's face went pale. He didn't waste a second. He picked her up in his arms and ran out of the store. The hospital was 20 minutes away. It felt like a lifetime. Inside the emergency room, doctors rushed to examine her. "She's only 8 months along," the nurse whispered. "But she's bleeding heavily." Armand stood outside the room, hands shaking. He couldn't hear clearly. His heart pounded like a drum in his chest. He remembered her words. "If you're going to be a father, you can't leave again." And now, she might leave him forever. After what felt like hours, the doctor came out. "She's stable," he said. "But we had to do an emergency C-section. The baby was in distress." Armand stepped forward. Is the baby okay?" The doctor took a deep breath. "She's fighting. She's very small, but strong. We'll keep her in NICU for the next few weeks." Armand blinked. She's a girl?" The doctor nodded with a gentle smile. "Yes, congratulations. You have the daughter." Armand's eyes welled with tears. A daughter. He was allowed to see Naz first. She looked weak, pale, but alive. Her eyes fluttered open, and the moment she saw him, she smiled weakly. "She's here," she whispered. Armand nodded, kneeling beside her bed. "She's here, and she's perfect." Naz tried to speak again, but tears rolled down her cheeks. "I didn't think I'd make it." "You did," Armand said softly. "You're the strongest person I know." She smiled, but then her face turned serious. "What if something happens to her? What if—" Armand gently held her hand. "Nothing will happen. I'll protect her, always, no matter what." He was takia, but peace didn't last. The very next day, Armand got a call from his lawyer. Rima had filed for emergency court proceedings. "She's trying to claim you lied about your finances," the lawyer said. "She wants your daughter's name removed from any inheritance." "What?" Armand stood up, furious. "She's a newborn." "She's using every trick in the book," the lawyer said. "She even sent reporters to the hospital." Armand looked at Naz and his baby through the glass. That was the moment something inside him shifted. He wasn't just a man trying to fix his past anymore. He was a father now, and he had something worth fighting for. That night, Armand met with his lawyer and signed over what was left of his personal fortune to a trust in Hope's name. "She'll never go through what I did," he said. "No amount of money or power is worth more than her." He also made a quiet video, confessing everything. How he had abandoned Naz, how greed had ruined his life, and how fatherhood brought him back. The video went viral within days. People across the country watched his confession. Some forgave him, some didn't. But one thing was clear: He was no longer hiding. Rima, cornered by public opinion and legal pressure, dropped the case days later and disappeared. The morning sun shone softly through the curtains of Naz's small house. She was feeding baby. Hope when the postman knocked on the door. Naz opened it and saw an envelope with no return address. Her heart skipped a beat. She carefully opened the letter and began to read. The letter was from Rima. It was cold and cruel. Rima claimed she was not done. She said she had found a legal loophole to challenge the trust Armand had set up for Hope. She warned Naz to give up, or she would take everything, including Hope. Naz's hands trembled. Tears welled up in her eyes. She looked down at Hope sleeping peacefully in her arms. Naz called Armand immediately. Her voice was shaky, but determined. Rima sent a letter. She's trying to take Hope away. Armand's face hardened. She won't win, he said firmly. I promise I will fight for our family, no matter what. The court hearing was set for 2 weeks later. Armand spent every day preparing with his lawyer. Naz stayed strong, for Hope. But the stress was heavy. She feared losing her daughter to a woman who once destroyed their lives. On the day of the hearing, the courtroom was full. Reporters waited eagerly outside. Armand sat beside Naz, holding her hand. Rima entered, confident and cold, dressed in expensive clothes. She looked at Armand with hatred. The judge listened carefully to both sides. Rima's lawyer argued that Armand hid assets and that the trust was invalid. But Armand's lawyer presented clear proof, documents, witnesses, even the viral video confession. Then, the biggest surprise came. Naz stood up and spoke with quiet strength. I am not the same woman who Armand left years ago, she said. I am a mother now, and I will do anything to protect my child. Her words moved the courtroom. The judge made the final decision. The trust was valid. Rima's challenge was dismissed. Hope was safe. As the courtroom emptied, Armand and Naz hugged. Tears of relief and joy flowed freely. Hope cooed in her mother's arms. Months later, Armand, Naz, and little Hope lived quietly but happily. Armand never forgot his past mistakes, but he focused on building a better future, with love, hope, and family.